Good morning. This is the ELBC News Hour. I'm Janet Johnson along with Zoga Jeans. This 15th day of July. It's 4 days to election. In this edition, ALCO's presidential aspirant storms Lofa County. Bokari Musa has a report. After depending on handouts for 7 years, UPP Bacchus Matthews says a UPP-led government will ensure food security. Fathers called on to be good examples to their children. Amnesty International urges politicians to prevent violence in the forthcoming elections. ECOMOG says hidden arms yet to be discovered are no threat to Liberia's security. We'll be bringing you details of these and more shortly.
With less than a week to the holding of elections in the country, citizens of Lofa County have resolved to support the presidential aspirant hailing from Lofa County. The decision was reached at a well-attended meeting to welcome ALCOP standard-bearer Alhaji Nkrumah to Foya district. The citizens said they are tired of supporting other candidates who often turn their backs to the county after electing them. Reporter Bokari Musa has the details.
In a speech to mark the occasion, ALCOP chairman for Lofa chapter, Chief Sekududu, said for several years Lofa has only contributed in helping other candidates to help the government, but no effort has been made to elect her own sons. Chief Dudu blamed this weakness to the lack of unity and understanding among the children of Lofa, who are divided along party lines. He told Lofa politicians at the Foya town hall that the time has come for them to suspend their party loyalties in order to vote for the county. Bring it forward, Philip Talley of the National Patriotic Party, Joseph Boakai of the Unity Party, Gabriel Makati of the Alliance, and Alhaji Nkrumah of ALCOP, Chief Dudu urged them to hold together for the sake of their county. The chief, who did not say which Lofa citizens should be supported for the presidency, underlined several benefits the county hoped to enjoy if the son of the soil is elected president. In remark, a prominent Lofa citizen who is now running for the Senate on the Unity Party ticket, Joseph Boakai, pledged to support any Lofa presidential hopeful in the pending election, but could not announce the termination of his link with the Unity Party. Speaking for her, Mr. Boakai told his fellow citizens that a president hailing from Lofa County will understand the problem of the region and help to improve the lives of the people. In response, ALCOP presidential hopeful Alhaji Nkrumah, himself a Lofa citizen, pledged to pave the county's major highway and open additional schools if he is elected president. Nkrumah, who was received by a jubilant crowd in Foya, apologized openly to the people maltreated by Ulimu fighters during what he termed pro-human struggle. However, he maintained that his tenure of office will be directed towards the effort to end human suffering throughout Liberia. Alhaji Nkrumah, who held a closed-door meeting with leading Lofa politicians and chiefs, was assured of their readiness to support him in the pending election. Similar promises were made in other Lofa major cities by several opinion leaders. I'm Bokari Musa for ELBC News, Monrovia.
In about 4 days, Liberians will be going to the polls to elect their first post-war leaders through democratic elections. The elections that are supposed to close the chapters of mass population displacement, armed hostility, and economic strains on ECOWAS states which have brokered the peace during the hostile years. But before going to these elections, the Intellectual Discourse Committee of the University of Liberia Student Union provided a channel through which would-be national leaders could discuss national issues in the form of debate. The debate was held last Friday in the UL Auditorium. ALCO's Alhaji Nkrumah, NPP's Charles Taylor, PPP's Chair Chipo, Linus Harry Moniba, and Alliance's Cletus Watterson did not show up. Dekunti Jackson witnessed the debate, and she now reports. With minor exceptions, the presidential candidates all shared a fundamental similarity on issues ranging from socio-economic to political. The candidates, however, had slight dissenting views on the liquidation of Liberia's external debts. Unity Party Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, an international economic expert, stressed the need to first categorize all national debts to determine the bona fide ones because some had been accumulated through illegal contracts.
Those people who have been engaged in illegal contracting of debt for the nation will have to answer it, and those particular debts will have to be put in a certain category.
On the question of reunification and stability, the candidates stressed cultural interaction, sports, religious activities, and an inter-county student exchange program as means of unification. Free Democratic Party Fayagboli noted that power decentralization enhances stability. He said the nation's wealth must be equally distributed among the counties. For Dr. George Toll Washington of the People's Democratic Party of Liberia, national conferences are helpful in the reunification drive. But politics indeed provides a perennial topic of argument. The diplomatic show and relative quietude flew out the windows when candidates were questioned about the Americo-Liberian native relationship on the one hand and the intra-native relationship on the other. Liberian People's Party Tokban Antipote stressed that in unifying Liberia, prominent Liberians must desist from perpetrating completely incorrect historical situations, as is the case with an imaginary Matilda Newport, who was celebrated every December 1 for massacring natives. United People's Party Bacchus Matthews declared that the Congos were the prime engineers of ethnic division because, according to him, history proves that the natives had always cooperated with Congos, as is evident by the large number of country people who sided with Congo people in perpetrating the Liberian Civil War.
We can identify the financiers of this war. We can identify the individuals that want to prosecute this war. It's not an accident that they belong to a particular ethnic group. But again, even when they came with money and arms, we have 100 people who are still willing to follow some of them.
That statement apparently was the straw that broke the camel's back. Reformation Alliance Party Boeman Famule differed with a progressive Bacchus Matthews. For the rap standard-bearer, instead of a seemingly Congo native strife, there rather exists a perennial inter-elite struggle.
It is a struggle between the elite. If you have one group of the elite which is backward and they take power, irrespective of the fact that they are American-Liberians or native, then we do the same thing to the people.
Then came the age-old question of national security, especially with the apparent holding of factional command structures. UPP's Matthew said there is a 100% possibility for a former faction leader who becomes president to transform his ex-fighters into government forces. For this reason, Mr. Matthews stressed no one former faction leader must be given state power. NDPL's George Bole, responding, noted that had it not been for what he called resistant movements like the disbanded ELBC, Mr. Matthews would not be discussing an impending election. For former Army Chief of Staff George Toll Washington, there must be a joint national security with the police force to protect the peace by constant patrols throughout the country. Except Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, most candidates did not state clearly their position on the feasibility or non-feasibility of the July 19 elections date. Some recalled reported electoral improprieties, one questioned the true independence of the Elections Commission, while others seemed to be reluctantly prepared for the elections. But from all indications, one of the 13 presidential contenders will in 2 weeks speak to the tune of the Liberian national anthem. I'm Deconti Jackson reporting for ELBC.
The final plane load of election materials arrived in the country last Friday at the Rabat International Airport. The materials, which arrived on board the Sansons Air, were delivered to ICOM Chairman Henry Andrews by the U.S. Chief of Mission Ambassador William Allen. Our ICOM reporter Gadia Woodson was among the many local and international journalists at the presentation ceremony following this report.
presenting the election materials to Icon Chairman G. Henry Andrews on behalf of the International Foundation for Election Systems. The Chief of Mission of the U.S. Embassy near Monrovia, Ambassador William Malan, said his government was pleased to identify with the electoral process in the country.
I just say that we hereby turn these over to you. I'm doing it in the name of IFAS, who is the arm of the U.S., the contractor, NGO used by the U.S. government to help in many elections. We think they've done a wonderful job here. We wish you great success and great luck in this election, which is only a week away now, and we will be staying with you to support the election wherever we can.
For her part, AFES representative in Liberia, Dennis Dunfinaya, said the materials represent part of the assistance that her agency has been providing in commodity and materials to the Elections Commission.
We're very pleased to be here and very pleased to be helping the Election Commission. This represents only a part of the assistance that we've provided in commodities and materials to the Election Commission. Almost at this point $2 million worth. Our funding and thanks also go to the U.S. Agency for International Development. We hope and believe that the elections will be reflect the true will of the Liberian people and march a step forward for Liberia.
Receiving the items, Chairman Andrews said the assistance is an indication of the interest of the government and people of the United States in the electoral process.
And as Gadia Woodson there with that report, we apologize for the very poor quality there. United People's Party presidential aspirant G. Bacchus Matthews has observed that it is disappointing that with a major humanitarian demand in Liberia, the political authority has proven itself incapable of mustering international goodwill and support to respond to the demand. On our sister program, Presidential Aspirants Live yesterday, Mr. Matthews noted that if only the right people are put in office, there's tremendous international support and goodwill for this nation.
It's very disappointing because there's tremendous international support and goodwill for Liberia if you have the right people who are going to do the right things, trying to make sure that the Liberian people are the priority.
Mr. Matthews noted that a UPP-led government will strengthen Liberia's international relations, encourage foreign investors, and also put into place mechanisms that will ensure agricultural and food security to discourage the dependency syndrome of Liberians on handouts, a result of the Civil War. It can be recalled that Mr. Matthews has twice served successfully as Foreign Minister of Liberia. Meanwhile, Mr. Matthews has also disclosed that a UPP-led government, as part of its Citizens Empowerment Plan, will ensure free and compulsory primary education for all Liberian youth. The UPP presidential hopeful and delegation continue its campaign today in Nimba, Bong, Riversez, and Bassa counties.
As part of his campaign activities in other parts of the country, the Liberia People's Party LPP standard bearer, Dr. Tukbanan Tipote, at the weekend moved into Grand Cape Mount County, where he was warmly received by the citizens. While in that county, Dr. Tipote visited Mandina, Sinje, and Tini, where the citizens pledged their support for his candidacy. David Takwe traveled with him and his details.
Dr. Tipote's past record of humanitarian assistance to needy Liberians and his significant contribution to the disarmament process won him the admiration of Cape Mountaineans. They came from villages and towns singing, dancing, and chanting slogans in support of the LPP standard bearer, who, according to them, convinced their children to disarm to ECOMOG under his School for Gun program, which benefited over 20,000 ex-combatants across the country. In Medina, where we made our first stop during the LPP's campaign tour of the county, the citizens told Dr. Tipote that their children's future is in jeopardy as there are no learning facilities and materials to engage them intellectually. We have heard about you and your good deeds, and we believe that you can do more if you become the next president of this war-devastated country, the citizens told the LPP standard bearer in a statement of support.
In Sinjay, where several innocent civilians were massacred in cold blood in May 1995, the citizens recalled the sad event and pleaded with the Almighty Father to restore their hope as we move on to elections for a stable and peaceful country where the basic human rights of all persons will be respected. Responding in a very solemn and mournful tone, the LPP standard-bearer, Dr. Tipote, consoled the Sinjay residents and spoke of his party's interest in sharing their sorrow. While also in Grand Cape County, Dr. Tipote presented 6,000 Liberian dollars to Sierra Leone refugees poured into Tenin as a result of having gunfire and bombardment in the West African state, where rebel forces have ousted the country's democratically elected President Amen Tijen Kaba. David Tawel, ELBC News, Grand Cape County.
And it's 17.5 past 7 o'clock. A reminder that you're listening to the ELBC News of Hour, and we are coming to you from Monrovia, Liberia. Still to come, fathers called on to be good examples to their children. Amnesty International urges politicians to prevent violence in the forthcoming elections. ECOMOG says hidden arms yet to be discovered are no threat to Liberia's security, and more.
The Director General of the Liberia Broadcasting System, Bushben Keita, is urging Liberians not to replace whosoever will be elected president of this country during the ensuing elections by any unconstitutional means. Speaking during the weekend at programs marking the graduation of 43 senior students of the William V.S. Totman Gray Senior High School in Banga, Bon County, Mr. Keita said one of the problems Liberians have been faced with in the past is that there has never been a constitutional change over the government, noting that governments of this country were always changed either by force or other means far from constitutional provisions. Deliberating on the theme, can the election be in vain, the LBS boss also said if Liberians continue to harbor the attitude of changing their governments outside the constitution, they stand the risk of nullifying the results of the pending electoral exercise.
Secondly, after the election, when we shall have elected a president of this country, we must respect the government that we elect into office. And it doesn't matter whether or not you voted for the president of the country. What matters is that if you are interested in lasting peace, if you are interested in an environment where you can further your education, if you are interested in an environment where your children in the future will be able to go to schools and be able to achieve something for themselves, then your fundamental obligation is to respect your government of the day. And from my own observation, this is something that we have lacked in the past. We have a tendency to overlook the government. We have a tendency to ask the president for his university degree. We have a tendency to ask our officials of government for their academic qualifications, failing to realize that through all the pages of our Constitution, nowhere is it indicated that there should be an academic qualification for the president or the vice president of this nation.
And that's LBS Director General Bushben Keita. A presidential hopeful is urging Liberians to place the interest of the country first during this week's presidential and general elections. The Liberia National Union standard-bearer, Dr. Harry Muniba, says Liberians must, at this time, choose to live in peace after 7 years of brutal civil conflict. Speaking in Banga at the weekend during a campaign tour, Dr. Muniba called on the people of Bon County to vote him into office for a better and peaceful Liberia. At the same time, Linus Vice Standard-bearer Thomas Harris, who has been living in America, says he has abandoned his earlier intention to contest the presidency to support Dr. Moniba, whom he described as a light of peace.
When you have peace, you can go to school and don't worry about it. When you have peace, you can get farm and don't worry about it. When you have peace, you will see development. Other people will want to come to your country and do business. When you have peace, you can sleep well. Let me tell you, if you listen carefully, we have heard statements made such as, if certain people win the election here, I will start a war. If certain people win the election, I will start a war. I'll tell you one thing. If you heard it, I heard it. The one thing I didn't hear, nobody ever said if Dr. Moniba get elected, I will start a war.
And that's the Vice Standard Bearer of the Liberia National Union, Honorable Thomas Quia.
That's Thomas Q. Harris. Fathers have been told to set examples worthy of emulation by their children. Speaking at the weekend at the Garden of Gethsemane Baptist Church's Father's Day program in Gatonsville, the Reverend Cecilia Gofa-Duo said a good father must play a forgiving and reconciling role. Reverend Duo, Alcop Vice Standard Bearer, told the congregation that a good father must be sober-minded, sensible, caring, and forgiving.
And as Alcop's Vice Standard Bearer, Cecilia Gofa-Duo. An official of the ELBC says the organization is prepared and committed to bring peace to the Republic through its mandate of repatriation and resettlement of Liberian refugees from the sub-region, a priority leading to general and presidential elections. Mr. Kerrian Pelina asserted that total peace can be achieved in the wake of the pending general and presidential elections come July 19, if Liberians can judge between the lines upon the past records of political aspirants to cast their votes. Speaking yesterday at the third commencement exercises of the Wells Heston High School, located in Gardnersville, held at the City Hall, the administrative assistant to the executive director for the says it is the responsibility of every Liberian to pay their obligation to the state by upholding every principle enshrined in the Constitution that governs this republic.
If you have the right to become a president of this nation today, maintain the presidency, because you are not immortal. Maintain the presidency and show that the proper mechanisms are put into place so that the presidency can be maintained up there for future generations. We don't have to trample on the rights of one citizen to enjoy rights from the state. The rights are just there.
ELBC's Executive Director, Executive Assistant Kerrian Pelina. As elections comes down this Saturday, political parties are vigorously campaigning to recruit significant numbers of partisans. Over the weekend, a UP's executive, Mrs. Mayunowe Shema, made a tour to Riverside County to campaign for Unity Party's Standard Bearer, Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Esther Wisse has a report.
A top official of the Unity Party, Mistress Monrovia Sherman, over the weekend made a vigorous campaign tour to Riverside County for Unity Party standard bearer Mistress Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. During her mobilization, Mistress Sherman, along with the UP's entourage, met with thousands of citizens, comprising chiefs, zones, and elders from all the districts in the county. The citizens who traveled from afar gathered at the UP's headquarters and the administrative building to await the arrival of the UP's presidential aspirant. There was a display of traditional dances by the chiefs, zones, and bodios to welcome Mistress Sherman, who has gone as a forerunner for Mistress Sirleaf. But unfortunately, Mistress Sirleaf was unable to travel to the county. According to UP's executives in Monrovia, there was no helicopter available by ECOMOG to transport Mistress Sirleaf, as it was said that the helicopters were busy. But despite the absence of Mistress Sirleaf, the citizens have pledged their loyalty and support to the UP's presidential aspirant.
Riverside County, sorry. Well, we will still look up to Mrs. Sally Johnson to arrive any other time this week or next week. We will still be happy and we will still welcome her with our faithful mind and with our sincere heart. But a little bit bad, but maybe sometimes she's a little bit busy because all the time the people they are too busy, so we can't blame her of not coming. I want to support her because I want her to become the next leader in the future are coming.
In her campaign tour, Mrs. Sherman cautioned the citizens to vote for a leader who will ensure a better future for Liberia.
And that's Esther Wisse with that report. As Liberians prepare for the polls this Saturday, Amnesty International is urging political parties to ensure that violence is prevented in the run-up to the elections. In a letter addressed to the Catholic Justice and Peace Commission Director Kofi Woods, Amnesty says during periods of violence, human rights are likely to be violated. Amnesty International is also calling on the JPC to make sure that if human rights are violated during this period, they should be fully and promptly investigated and those responsible brought to justice. The London-based human rights organization wants special attention to be given to protecting the rights of Liberian refugees and internationally displaced persons around the elections. Amnesty further urges the JPC to observe the human rights standards in Liberia and the status of refugees in the repatriation process in line with the UN and OAU conventions.
ECOMOG has announced that it has reduced by about 35,000 the number of weapons in circulation in Liberia. According to the force commander, weapons recovered during the cordon search operation include artillery, anti-aircraft, anti-tank, rocket-propelled and machine guns, as well as assault rifles, bombs, and grenades. Over 4 million assorted small arms and ammunition, the force commander told a news conference, have also been recovered. General Mallory assured Liberians that hidden arms, which are yet to be recovered, are no more threat to state security, but maintained that ECOMOG will ensure that such arms are recovered before leaving Liberia. And on that note, we conclude this edition of the News Half Hour. Thanks to our head of news, Chester Bongan, news director Miguel Bubba, editor-in-chief Frank Sinwada, and my colleague Janet Johnson, who sat at control. I'm Zoga James, now turning you over to Ebenezer Blamo Robinson for a continuation of Infomix.
Thank you very much, Zoga James. It's 7:30. We take our final commercial break on the program, and when we return, we have our studio guest, Mr. Brownie Samukai, the Deputy Minister of State for Administration at the Executive Mansion. We're going to be discussing electoral and electoral-related matters.
A presenter of the BBC Africa service is quoted as saying, when he heard Infomix during the April 6, 1996 fighting in Monrovia, he thought he was listening to Network Africa.